Welcome to the Saurabh Sagar Show, and today we are talking about what is required to record your content for social media. Have a well lit room.
Who turned off the lights?
Can we please edit this saga? Get a good quality microphone and camera. Get a green screen.
Get a good video editing software. Prepare, rehearse, and then act. If you fumble, just uh, if you fumble, just reset your posture and continue. You can edit it in post production. Have a good pace, not too fast nor too slow. Vary your tone. Take pauses.
Get some good background score. Create a good thumbnail image of your videos.
Those were the tips for today. Join us for conversations on the street.
In Conversation on the Street today, we are talking about how to build your own personal brand. What exactly do you mean by creating a personal brand? In my mind, personal brand is much deeper than just your online presence. It is about how you present yourself to the world, your skills, your values, your expertise, and even your personality. Think of it as a reputation you actively shape for yourself. It's how people perceive you when you are not in the room.
Saurabh, you made a good point there. And I want to talk about a few myths on that topic itself. The first one is a lot of people think that a person who has their own branding are only talking and they don't have any deep technical skills. I feel that's a myth. And a lot of times, at least in our technology area and especially IT, I see that people who are talking and are on social media are the people who have really good technical skills. So don't uh, don't put a tag on social media influencers or people who are on social media saying they are only the people who can talk and not be technical.
Absolutely. Well said, Sagar. Let's move on to the second question. Why is personal branding so important? From a professional standpoint, a strong personal brand can help you stand out in your field, especially in industries like tech and data where there is a lot of competition. A solid brand can position you as an expert and help you get noticed by the right people.
When you talk about social media and especially building your own brand, one of the myths that I quite often hear from people around me is, and it's when they talk with me is, Sagar, you're natural. It just comes natural to you. I don't think it comes natural to me. It took efforts, practice, and a lot of takes. Well, I've been a YouTuber for almost 3 years now. So it took me 3 years to be at what I am. So don't think that you're not natural. Don't think that you don't have that quality. You'll have to learn and get that quality. And there's also another myth related to that is the people who are on social media are extroverts. So that's another myth. You don't have to be an extrovert to be on social media. You can stay introvert and you can still be a social media star. You just have to learn how to do it, practice how to do it, and then act it. So I would say you do your preparation, rehearsal, and then act.
Well said, Sagar. And the example is here. I'm an introvert and you are an expert. And we both are on social media now.
You think I'm an extrovert. So in my teenager times, I was not an extrovert. I was an introvert. Changed over the time to talk a lot. And again, that was a conscious decision. Everyone should be doing that conscious decision. At first, it feels scary. It feels difficult. But after you do multiple times again and again, it will just come naturally.
Let's move on to the next topic. How do we actually go about building our own brand? So in my mind, it starts with self-reflection. It's about finding what are your strengths, what are you passionate about, what value do you bring to others. Once you have figured that out, you can start crafting your message. You don't have to be an expert at everything. Focus on few key areas and you want to be recognized.
Now, there's a myth that people who are having their own brands or have created their own brands or on social media have got a lot of free time. And that's not necessarily correct. Like we do this show, Saurabh and Sagar Show, during night hours or during weekends, which is after office hours. And we absolutely don't have time, but we find time to do it because we feel it is important for us to do this show for our branding. And try to get that time. It's not free, and you won't find someone with just free time doing something on social media.
And don't underestimate the power of storytelling. People connect with stories and not just facts. Share your journey, your success, even your failures. I think being authentic will help you connect with your audience on a deeper level.
Well, on storytelling, it's very important to have something personal. If you're presenting in front of people on a stage, talking about your personal story, that attracts the attention. As you said, Saurabh, a storyline will attract people. The storyline will also make sure people are paying attention to what you're saying rather than just few points.
Sagar. And then the last point I want to raise is the importance of networking. Whether it's engaging with others on LinkedIn or attending industry events, building relationship is a huge part of personal branding. So to wrap things on the personal branding, it is all about taking control of your narrative. It is about being intentional with how you present yourself to the world. And with the right strategy, it can open doors for you professionally and personally.
So let's get a speaker today who can talk about creating your own personal brand. Our guest today is Adam Morton. Adam is a consultant, author, and also a speaker. He has over 20 years of experience in data and AI and has worked with some of the biggest brands in the industry. He has worked as a data engineer, as an architect. He has worked as head of data and even as chief technology officer. He is here to talk about building your own brand. So welcome, Adam, to our show.
Thanks so much. Great to be here. Thanks, Sagar. Thanks, Saurabh. And looking forward to our conversation today.
I want to start with how you created your own brand. Like, you are my inspiration, and I told you multiple times that I want to be like you. That's how I started my YouTube channel, seeing you and following you. How do you create your own brand? What are things or ingredients required for creating your own brand?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is I didn't intend necessarily to create a brand and start out to do that. And it kind of organically grew from kind of humble beginnings, let's say, to what it is today. But even now, Sagar, you've got more YouTube subscribers than me. So that's good, all right? So that's a good place to be. And I guess, for me, there was a couple of things that acted as a catalyst to create a brand. And one of those was 5 years ago, I moved to Australia from the UK. Never been to the country before. I knew about 4 people in Australia at that point. And you don't really value the importance of a network until it's not there. And so when I found myself here, it was about 4 months before COVID and the global pandemic, which made meeting people through kind of the water cooler conversations in offices and those things, again, that you would have taken for granted at that time, much harder. So it was much harder to build relationships. So that was the first thing. And I was asking myself a question: how am I going to meet people? How am I going to connect with people in the data industry? Because for me, being a consultant, it's the lifeblood, as you know, right? The relationships that you build, the trust that you instill in other people. Ultimately, people are only going to give work to people that they like and trust. And if they don't know who you are and they don't know if you're there, you're not going to get any work, right? So things are going to be quite difficult. So I'd say that was the catalyst to kind of try to get stuff underway initially. And I would say the number one key thing, without a shadow of a doubt, is consistency. And so many people I will see will kind of post maybe every single day for 2 weeks and I'll never hear from them again. And then they'll come back in 6 months' time, right? And it kind of doesn't really work that way, not just because of the algorithm, but also because you need to build up a following and people want to be engaged. People want to constantly see you adding value to them, right? And so consistency is the number one thing. And so probably for the last 4 years, I've been continually posting in a variety of mediums, YouTube, LinkedIn. The books are obviously a little bit different. I don't think that you necessarily need that to build a personal brand. But that was the catalyst. And the number one thing is consistency in coming from a place of service and trying to add value to other people is important. not just coming and saying, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy that? Right? If you do have services and you do have value, then that will naturally come as a byproduct. But really, you've got to start by looking to add value and help other people as a first principle.
Adam, you talk about consistency, and then you said you created a brand, and for the last 4 years, you have been constantly posting on LinkedIn and very active in the community. So how do you see you maintain do you see that your brand has evolved in the last 4 years? And how do you make sure that the way your brand evolved, you are making sure it is still relevant and maintaining the brand itself, not just creating one? So I would like to know about that.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. And I think from the beginning when I arrived in Australia, I saw a big opportunity around Snowflake as a technology because not a lot of people had got into that here. And I was fortunate enough to be using Snowflake as a technology since 2017 in the UK, which is quite early on. So when I landed here and kind of took a look around, and obviously people say Australia is a little bit behind Europe, UK, and the US. People were just starting to scratch the surface and trying to understand what Snowflake was all about. And so I chose as a go-to-market strategy to go to market with Snowflake. And that's what I was posting about. And that's what I was doing videos about, because I saw a gap in the market and I saw a lot of untapped potential there. Now, there's a risk to doing that, right? If Snowflake disappeared overnight, then well, it's probably not just me. There's probably other people like Sagar with a problem as well, and other people, right? But to attach yourself to a technology, and we all work in this field, it can change so rapidly, right? And even Snowflake as a technology has changed dramatically in that short space of time. So initially that's worked really well because you're synonymous then with the technology product, but you have to be cognizant there's a risk to that at the same time. And so I would say if you rewind sort of 9-10 months ago when I decided to write the third book, and the one in the middle is Future Proof One, which I've just released, this was less to do with technology, and it was more to do with skills. Building a brand is actually a chapter in that about building a brand, the stuff that we're talking about today. It's about how to be future ready for the world of technology, whether you're a seasoned kind of experienced leader or whether you're kind of early days getting into your career. And so I decided to release that book 9 months ago because strategically I was making plans to step away from being so closely linked to a technology because I felt the credibility piece was there. I felt that a lot of the potential I'd seen in the market, some of that road is now being traveled by a number of different organizations. And so I wanted to kind of be less synonymous with the technology specifically. And from a running the business perspective, there's only so many people are going to want Snowflake set up initially and train Snowflake. And at some point, that market's going to be saturated and there's going to be less demand there. So from a strategic perspective, I wanted to be helping companies kind of get the most out of their data assets and their ROI from their kind of data platforms they've got, regardless if that's Snowflake or something else, And so it was like, how can I expand my impact? How can I make the brand broader? And that brings us really up to today. And this is the t-shirt I've got on is Versix brand. This is really where we're at now. The Master and Snowflake brand is starting to transition into Versix. And again, it's dropping the name of Snowflake. That's added a lot of value. That's still there and a big part of what we're going to do. But we're going to introduce other technologies, other capabilities into the training catalog to help with the organizations and data professionals.
I just want to read out some of the books that you already have written. So I think you started with mastering Snowflake solutions. Then you had SnowPro study guide. You also have designing a modern applications data stack. And then obviously the one that you just released is Future Proof. So those, and most of them are related to Snowflake. So let's talk about Versix. So what's Versix? Is it going to be something which is related to what you do with your brand, with your podcast, with your newsletters and so on, or it's something different, totally different?
Yeah, look, it's a good question because there's going to be quite a bit of rebranding required, and in how far that kind of permeates into everything is a question I'm kind of weighing up in my mind. The first focus and the main focus is taking the training material itself, which was really centered around Snowflake, as you quite rightly mentioned. So we've got a SnowPro course, study guide course that really goes hand in hand with the SnowPro study guide book. And that's really laser focused, helping people get to that first certification that people need as a prerequisite before they move on to the advanced stuff for Snowflake. The Master in Snowflake program itself is the signature program, and that kind of goes into a lot of detail with regards to everything Snowflake related. That's been around 4 years. We've got 200 people on that particular program, a mixture of kind of individuals and companies who've put their teams through that program as well. And now we've started to adapt and broaden that course catalog. We've got a really exciting 24-month roadmap in place. We've just released a DBT course on Snowflake to sit alongside everything else. Coalesce is the next one before the calendar year end. And then we're looking to bring, and we're having conversations already with the best technical people in their fields to create courses around Databricks, data governance, you name it, all initially around the data analytics, and of course the Gen AI LLM space as well at a high level, because that's changing more rapidly. So the content and the rebranding from Master in Snowflake to Versix, that's the main thing. And that's set up as a completely separate new legal entity as well. That's a completely different business now to the stuff I do with my customers from a professional services standpoint. So it's standing on its own 2 feet. It's a going concern. It's making good profit and helping a lot of people. But it's like, how can we now scale that impact even further? The other part to that, part of Versix as well, just to mention, is we're building a platform underneath that to serve the content. And we're leveraging AI as part of that. So one of the biggest costs to content creation when you're talking about training platforms is keeping that content up to date. It's a huge challenge, and it involves a lot of recording, a lot of script writing, a lot of editing. Once the course catalog's there, we want a platform that's going to really ease that path and reduce that overhead by leveraging a lot of the AI. And that means really that we can reverse engineer scripts. We can actually have speech to text, multilingual, bringing a range of languages in, a matter of minutes. From a vendor rolling out a new change or feature, we can update that script and roll it through. So in parallel, we're going to be building this platform, which we see is at some stage, the value of that is going to outweigh the value of just the content alone.
You talked about newsletter. You talked about podcast. You've got books. You've got this new company, Versix. How do you find time to do all these things on top of the consultancy job that you're doing? It's just crazy. We can't even do our podcast, let alone, talking about all these other things. So how do you find time, and what is the planning process?
Yeah, so I'm very strict with my time, I would say. First of all, I know what my priorities are for every single day, and I'm really structured around that. Once my day is locked in, my day basically starts the night before, okay? My calendar's locked in. Somebody calls me up and says, oh, have you got 30 minutes today? I'm like, no, because I haven't, because it's locked in, right? And I've got certain priorities. So unless there's like a burning critical issue, or unless there's like, 6-figure sale on the table when it gets signed, you're not going to get my time in an instant, because that shows me I don't value my time and where my priorities are effectively. And I could never get done what I get through if I wasn't that strict with my time. The most valuable asset is your time, right? Number one. Second thing is, I design my life in a way that I can do all this stuff. Don't commute, run my own calendar. I decide where I dedicate my time to. And so because I don't commute, then that's all that time back every day. That's all that energy back every day. Okay. And then my first priorities is I every day I do the school run with the kids. Sagar knows this. He'll try to get a calendar invite in. And he loves to try to get 8:30, 9 o'clock. He'd call me at this time as well. He won't get a response, or I won't accept his meetings, because for me, I'm taking the kids to school every day, and that's like number one priority. And then the second thing is kind of, looking after myself and my health. So I'll do my own training. And so to boil it down into like a typical schedule, every single morning is when I have the most productive energy. And so I don't have any scheduled meetings in that time. I don't allow people to book meetings in unless there's an exception and I really need to fit something in. That's my time for doing real creative stuff and kind of thinking. And so I'll be doing newsletters, writing a book. I'll have like an hour block. I won't have any distractions. I won't be on social media. I won't be surfing the net. That hour I'll be writing. And I'll do 2 or 3 times as much as I could do in that hour without those distractions. In the afternoon, after lunch then, that'll be blocked out for client work or sales calls. And I'll try to stack those meetings one after another there. And that's when my creative energy is kind of lower. And I can jump on the calls, go through those things. And for me, that's a lot easier to do that in the afternoon. So I've kind of get all the high value activities out of the way for myself personally and the priorities for the day. And then I'll do everything else in the afternoon, which is client calls, sales calls, all that kind of stuff. And every day that structure is exactly the same. And so my stuff will go in there first. Everything else will fit around it. Everyone has a different kind of energy cycle throughout the day. And I think it's important to recognize that. So when are you the most productive? When are you the most creative? And then as soon as you recognize that, be very, very protective of that time. Don't let anybody steal that time for you, because if you want to do this kind of stuff, and if you want to kind of have a lot of variety and do things that energize you, then protect your time when you want to maximize that kind of creative activities for yourself.
I really like the point where you said, Adam, the productive hours. And I know for the fact that a lot of people don't even realize what their productive hours are. So we kind of struggling with our day-to-day lifestyle, working on client projects, doing personal stuff, and we're still not sure what's up. So this is something I discovered during the COVID period, that I used to stay up late night doing the most creative things. But then I discovered that my productive hours are in the morning, not night. So, so started my journey as a programmer doing late night coding, and that kind of set me up for, okay, this is my most productive hour. But I discovered that mornings are more productive and afternoons are more for meetings and less productive. So yeah, so that's true. I think identifying your productive hours is a key thing.
Even for me, the productive hours or creative hours are in the morning. So if I have to do something important, I will wake up even 4 in the morning. So, and between 4 to 6, I would do job, which is probably 6 hours job or something, because I'll be so laser focused and it will be all correct. But if I try to do that at night, I may end up doing it, but it may not be the same quality as I would have done in the morning. So just wanted to say, so we three find that mornings are good. So if we all three agree, then I think majority should agree on mornings.
Yeah, look, I think it works well for most people because you're fully rested and you naturally have more energy in the morning for most people. I guess the other key point is if you prioritize the stuff that you really need to do first thing, the day can't get lost. So what I mean by that is if you start and you go, oh, well, I'm going to just ease into the day. I'm going to go to this meeting here and I'm going to do that. Well, actions will come out of that. Stuff will come up and then you'll get railroaded. And then before you know it, it's 3, 4 in the afternoon and you haven't hit any of the real priorities that you want to hit.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, Adam, you have multiple things going in parallel. So you are writing a book, you have a newsletter, you're creating learning platforms and courses. How do you find starting a new idea or something, like taking the first step for your new idea? Are you at a stage now that it is easy for you? Or is it difficult? For me, it's very difficult starting something new. So I find the first step to any new idea or anything is the most difficult. Once that first step is taken, I find myself easier to carry on. But just wanted to ask you how do you feel about having done so much of things successfully?
So success, I would say, is subjective. So we'll come back to that point. I don't feel as though I'm starting anything new at any point, certainly for the last few years, right? So I have an overarching mission, if you like. And that mission is to help really impact as many data professionals realize their potential, their career potential. That's it. So if anything doesn't align with that, and I get asked to do a lot of things and I say no to a lot of things, I say no to a lot more things than I say yes to, because it doesn't align with that goal and that vision. However, if stuff does align with that vision, like being approached to write this book on Snowflake or the report on Snowflake, the ebook that you mentioned at the top of the call, well, yeah, it's adding value to the data community, then it's absolutely yes, I'm in on that, right? So producing training material, writing newsletters, doing a video now, that's just a continuation of this kind of infinite purpose, right? Because you're never going to reach a goal. You're never going to reach a goal where it's like everyone on the planet, all these data professionals, and reach their potential, right? But that's purposely so. There's a couple of things. I never want to reach that goal, because what do you do then? So I want that goal to be infinite. I want it to go on and on. And I also don't want it to be about me. It needs to be about other people, because that's what's going to motivate you every day and get you out of bed and to kind of do this and add value back. Like I've done way more in my career than I ever thought was possible, 2-3 times more. So everything now on top of this is a bonus. The bit though that I would say is really changed now is I used to be a perfectionist. Like I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? And I wanted like my standards are really quite high for myself, and nobody puts more pressure to be really, really on top of everything all of the time and feel as though you're in control of everything, even though that's kind of a bit of an illusion to some degree. But now I really value progress over perfection, and that gets easier. It's like going to the gym and lifting weights. Every time you put some content out there, putting a post on LinkedIn, writing a book and put it into the public domain, putting a course out there and selling it to a company as a one-man band, right? All of these kind of steps or rungs on the ladder where you're getting tested at each stage. Like, are you happy to put stuff out there and be critiqued on it? And I got to the point where I'm thinking, well, if my own personal bar is that high, and if I can get to 80% of that, then maybe that's okay for like everybody else, even though I'm not 100% happy with it. So I really focus on progress over perfection. So I make a start, I break that task down into what I need to do. And then the more times you do it, like writing a book, it gets easier and easier. And it is like going to the gym. The more stuff you do, the easier things get. Things that were hard at the beginning start to get easier. And so I think anybody starting stuff new, which finds it hard, is quite natural. But once you get through those hard yards, you then learn a lot about yourself and the process. And it gets a lot easier every time you iterate over that then, you know? And nothing's ever quite finished. Like if I put a course out there and I get some feedback on that to say, this is confusing, it doesn't make sense, or we need this kind of element in there. Well, I'm in control of everything. I just go, tomorrow I'm going to just knock another video out to do that, upload it. It's all done. There's no kind of lead time on that. It's all up to me and how I want to allocate my time, going back to my earlier point.
And like you said, progress is so critical, because if you don't do that, I might have an excellent video after 1 year, but it's not going to help me. So that's where I started learning, let me put this out. Let's see what happens. To be honest, we should be open to critics and get feedback.
If you look at the first video, look at the last video, that's a great demonstration of how far you come on that journey, right? But if you never post that first video, you're never going to be able to make that progress or look back and see that progression over time, right?
I think sometimes being vulnerable helps you getting the critiques and feedback, and then it brings the best out in you.
Yeah, and it gets easier. The more you do it, the easier it gets, right? The first time you're doing it, you think everything's like feels like a sucker punch, and you're like, oh wow, and you got to like kind of be in the right frame of mind to kind of address it.
Your book journey seems to be very inspiring. Tell us about your journey of writing your first book and what inspired and what led to that book.
Yeah, look, so I'd always had a plan to write a book at some stage. Didn't know what it was going to be on, and so I didn't mind writing. I didn't find writing as much of a chore as some other people do, especially a lot of technical people don't like writing any documentation because it's document code, right? It's fine. Anyone can understand it. And so when I started that go-to-market strategy about putting stuff out there around Snowflake, random guy messaged me, hey, do you want to write a book on Snowflake? And I was like, yeah, whatever. I get that stuff all the time, and I didn't think anything more of it. But it was, it was a publisher getting in touch. They saw what I was putting out there. They probably asked a few other people. I was like, yeah, look, I'm happy to do that and give that a go. And so I actually found it really, really easy, because a lot of it was in my head. A lot of it was doing anyway. And so I just had to kind of just have a structure that worked. And luckily, like, as I said, my discipline and the way I approach work worked really well. And for 1 hour a day, Monday to Friday for 3 months, wrote the book, and then they published it all, right? But what I did during that, which was the bit that was really good, I always wanted to produce a digital on-demand course, which is now known as the Master in Snowflake program, and I wanted to do a YouTube channel. So I thought, you know what? I want to create a following around this. So I'm going to create a YouTube channel. And when I created the YouTube channel, I was repurposing some of the content for the book in a visual way. And through that, I learned how to video edit and do all the stuff that Sagar has probably been through on his YouTube channel. And so that started to build an audience for the book. But then because I learned how to record stuff, have better visual and audio equipment, and edit videos, I was like, right, I'm going to repackage a lot of that same material, and I'm going to create the first iteration of the Master in Snowflake program. So I did exactly the same thing. And so through the process of just creating that initial book and being asked to write that, I repurposed the content a number of times, one for YouTube, want to create the Master and Snowflake program, the initial version of that. And so I thought, well, this is quite good because I'm getting like 3 times as much value out of doing one thing.
What would be your advice to youngsters who are starting their career in IT?
Yeah. Broad question, Saurabh, on that one, because I guess it could be anything. But like, I guess the main thing is, regardless of what you're going to do, you need to find a way to connect with people and network with people, because my concern is with graduates now, it's really hard for them when there's not that kind of workplace and that mentorship that probably we all experienced at the time. It's quite different now. I used to remember kind of sitting in the office. I used to work for a big major bank in the UK. That was my first kind of role. And I was able to kind of just learn through osmosis, like how do the senior managers interact with other people? How do they kind of have conversations on the phone and all this kind of stuff? Like you don't see any of that now because you're just rocking up on the Zoom call and just seeing like bite-sized snippets of things. So it's really, really difficult. So I think my main advice to them would be to network with other people in person and look for those events where they can start to contribute some level of value themselves, but also take away probably more value initially by meeting other people that can give them advice, potentially act as more kind of informal mentors as well, people that have done what they're looking to do in the industry and learn from them. I would keep it simple. I wouldn't try to boil the ocean because, you need to get some level of experience. And I think that trying to find somewhere that's going to expose you to a lot of different environments, put yourself in a lot of different positions to find out what you like and most importantly, what you don't like, trying to connect with those individuals that display those values and qualities that you see yourself being in the future is going to be absolutely key for yourself and your growth.
Thank you, Adam, for your time. I really appreciate you talking to our audience on how to build your brand. Some of the tips that you have given us are really fantastic.
That's great. Thanks, Sagar. Thanks, Saurabh. Yeah, really great to have a chat. I hope your viewers and anyone that listens to the podcast gets some advice. And if they're interested, there's way more in the book as well if you want to pick that up on Amazon as well.
Thank you.
For those who are listening, who are just starting out, remember that it's okay to start small. You don't have to have everything figured out at once. Just take the first step. Over time and your brand will grow. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave us a review. Until next time, take care and be safe.